Hello, everyone, and welcome to the December 19th Product Analytics Group Sync, possibly the last one of the year. I don't know if anyone's going to be at next week. That's the day after Christmas. So, we'll see. It might just be me. But we can do a little stand up. I'm working on the GA readiness review. As you might have seen, our beta infrastructure readiness review has gotten approved, so we're officially out of that gate, which is looking good. So yeah, it's kind of that final stretch you may have seen. For those that caught the engineering all hands, we're trying to target Q1 for general availability. It's really just the billing MVC that we're trying to look for in terms of rounding out one, providing access to customers and also being able to charge them. Of course, there are odds and ends we need to resolve on the infrastructure side of things and making sure that they have run books and that we can hand off how we would support that. But overall, things are looking good. Just pardon me 1 second, or actually, yeah. So apart from that, I'm working on obtaining some cost data and hopefully starting a POC on doing a little bit more data enrichment, something we're really keen to start mixing with the product analytics. Other than that, just trying to queue up a couple topics for next year as far as setting up office hours now that we're in beta, getting anyone who's interested working with or sitting down with us to work with instrumentation. We'll likely combine with analytics instrumentations office hours, but we need to figure out the hour in terms of timing between EMEA and APAC and the Americas. So right now it's set at 8 a.m. UTC, I believe, and so that's it's tough for a lot of areas. So yeah, that's me. Let's go next.
I can jump in next. Two things on the go for me is the top pages grouping bug fix that I've been looking at. So they are now grouping together and you can get actual counts of your pages, which is nice instead of manually adding everything up. That's just going through review now. There was one question raised around paths with trailing slashes on them. So now that we are grouping things by path, the trailing slashes are showing up as separate paths. So yeah, potentially some follow-up work there to further group things if we want to consider those to be the same thing. And the other one is just this natural language querying proof of concept, which I can share my screen and show a little mini work in progress report if you like.
Nice. Why not?
With only about a little bit of smoke and mirrors.
Would you? Well, no, we can share this, right? I don't need to pause the recording.
True. I hadn't considered that. I think it's all public issues.
Yeah, it's fine. We're fine.
Cool. Do you see that?
Yep. See, create your visualization.
Cool. So in the visualization designer, Jan added some basic UI and a little spike just to get some things going, and he hooked up the GraphQL endpoint that Max has put together. And so now if you hit submit, it sends that off, gets back a generated query, updates the preview of that, and then this is what I've just been working on this morning. It updates all of these filters and everything based on the query that was generated. So you can now come in here and, say you wanted to group it by month instead of week. You can just make changes and further refine it from there. Nice. The main trickery here is we're not actually getting back a generated query at this point. This is a hard-coded result, but everything else is kind of working towards that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
The end.
Well, that'll be exciting to see if we can get some consistency around the query generation for sure. Or I guess have it do some best guesses, but I guess I don't know how that'll play with like temperature control in the model if we even have that flexibility with it. But
I think we do, yeah.
Okay. To your point, as far as the page paths or and the trailing slashes, is there a specific, I guess, is there anything identifying why some are having trailing slashes and others not, because I suppose I would have imagined the snowplow enrichment process to kind of standardize all of that, so that regardless of whether you had a trailing slash or not, it'd be like this was that page. So I'm curious if there are like query parameters that are in there, which is why the slashes stay there in the page. I'm assuming it's the page URL path dimension.
Yeah,
Um,
page URL path, and no, if you go just directly to a clean path with and without a trailing slash, it records them as two separate paths.
Interesting. Okay. So
Um,
then potentially that's something we could explore of like, is this an additional enrichment we add to the snowplow process to say, hey, we just don't do trailing slashes. If there's nothing, if you don't have query parameters or anything like that, we remove the trailing slash.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think that would be a good approach. I'm just assuming that there is some reason that Snowplow keeps them separate by default,
yeah.
and
Well,
just double checking that that reason doesn't apply to us.
if there's a reason I don't yet know it, we can create an issue around it and see what analytics instrumentation thinks about it since they really own that. But um, yeah, on one hand, my initial impression was, is it an instrumentation issue? But then, a user of your application just adds a slash purposefully or not. And
Yeah,
that can, you know, lead to eventual miscounts or whatever. So I
yeah,
think ideally, and feel free to chime in, but I think removing the slash and standard, like combining all those results, if there's no other difference, we should do that.
yeah. I agree. I've got an issue there. I guess the one thing that I do like about seeing the separate paths is it kind of highlights what's essentially a misconfiguration of the application that should be redirecting trailing slashes back to not to non or vice versa.
Mm,
Um, but in the context of product analytics, it just looks kind of wrong having duplicate paths there. And Jan
yeah,
noticed as well that if it's the root path, then you
yeah,
have nothing and trailing slash, and they both just show up as slash in the top pages visualization.
yeah. That's a fair point. Should it even be nothing, or should it be just slash? Mm. Okay. Well, I mean, we don't have to decide here, but we can create the issue and go from there.
Yeah.
Cool. Graham, we
Yeah.
didn't skip you.
No, there's a, and thank you, Ellen, for helping me with this yesterday. There's a design initiative to do kind of like a paper cut before end of January, and there were a couple things that I had noted about analytics specifically, more like front end stuff, um, that I was hoping to tackle. But I also have very limited technical knowledge, and so kind of scoping it so that it was something that I personally could work on and not have to like rely on a full team, in the spirit of the exercise, I'll say. And so I was talking with Elwin yesterday about getting kind of accessing it, and I'm in the process of writing the draft for it, but removing. There's a bug where if any of the charts, they were built so that they would accommodate scrolling if the key grew to be particularly big. And if there's more than one item, it makes sense that there's like a fade at the bottom of the key. But when there's just one item, it fades out part of the actual key, so it's a little bit difficult to read. So my goal is to work on the CSS on getting that to not happen when there's just one item, and no scroll necessary, but only happen when there's multiple items. Um, and then, so that's kind of number one. And then the second item is I'm still working on like a kind of like a heuristic evaluation, sort of, on the dashboard flow in and product analytics itself, and building a new dashboard and that sort of thing. So I was really excited to see the oh shoot, what's the name of it? The Duo like usage in that too, was really cool. And it was fun to like design some screens for it too. So, um, but yeah, doing those two things primarily right now. And again, thank you, Ellen, for helping set me up yesterday. Um, but yeah, that's kind of what I've got on my plate.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, also, sorry,
No
thinking
worries.
about there was a discussion in the kind of like all UX meeting on I believe Monday, or it might have been last week actually, for essentially the UX team is looking for guidance on what dashboards look like as a component of pajamas in kind of a more general sense, because a lot of teams are starting to utilize dashboards for their own work, and they have kind of looked towards me and our team to start thinking about that process and kind of like leading it. It's still very early, and um, I'm still like getting learning about it. So I'll definitely keep you guys posted, but I might be doing a little more UX work just on general like dashboard guidance and using product analytics as kind of the basis for that. But there's like a ton of need finding to figure out like what other teams are using dashboards for. And there's a lot of discussion about like what does a dashboard consist of, and is it something that is suggested versus custom versus editable, and all sorts of different things. So there's a lot of considerations there. And it'll definitely be a challenge to take our specific dashboards and create a general like dashboard like design guide for that. But um, I'm excited to take on the work. It's just very early, so I figured I'd let you guys know that that's happening.
Are you familiar with what's already established in dashboards as a pattern in the pajamas system?
There's, I believe there's, they just actually created the page specifically to like kickstart the work.
Yeah,
So,
so we put that together actually. Like
oh, okay.
myself, Rob, and Jan were involved as part of the dashboard working group, which started earlier this year in terms of
Oh, nice.
standardizing on at least the understanding or the expectation of what dashboards are supposed to do.
Okay.
So, which I guess is a great segue eventually once I get into my little mini monologue for the year. But, we were actually about a year ago still calling things like widgets and things like that. And that's
Hmm.
actually in this working group where we defined the concept of grid panels, visualizations, things like that. So all that to say is like there's definitely like a foundation to start from, but I
Okay.
I think there's a good opportunity for us to expand upon that. I think just for context, when we were putting the working
Mhm.
group together, we had just wanted to define what is a dashboard, what is it supposed to do, what are the options, and we were a heavy influence of that because we were looking at what do we want dashboards to do in the future, which
Mm.
involves editability, customizability, adding filters and things like that. Which, if you look at older dashboards like CI code analytics, value stream analytics prior to its new version, um, they're very rigid. Just like a
Mm.
single, some of the dashboards were just literally a single visualization on a page. That was it.
Oh,
Um,
weird.
yeah, so like we had a very non-standard. We didn't have a definition of a dashboard. It was just
Mm.
like if there's a graph or a chart, that was effectively a dashboard. So I think we've done better on that. We've also identified as part of that working group. If you want, if I can send the I think it might still be in the working group itself, the page, but like we identified, I think over 30 different dashboards that were all like non-standardized. They were all doing their own thing.
Mm.
So yeah,
And that
we're
was
we're
like at the time on GitLab.
yes, that was when
Oh,
the
dang.
group was formed, which was I think earlier this year. So like there is an issue for that. I can help dig that up if that would help.
Okay.
But the idea was that we were definitely trying to use kind of what we saw for the vision of product analytics to at least help guide what others may want to use dashboards for. Um, of course, I'd love to just use what we have as is and just have that set as the standard. And I think we're kind of starting to head to that direction anyways, because like if you look at Optimize, they're building a value stream dashboard on our framework anyways. And the overall goal with that as well too is to eventually get all of the, or at least enable other teams to migrate their dashboards over to our framework. So even if it's just like a single visualization or whatever, they could do that. So to your point, there's a lot of things that still need to be figured out, but I would say, yeah, I think I don't know, we're probably in one of the better positions of like
Yeah.
really setting the stage for that, given that we are basically trying to get other teams to adopt the framework in general. Not to say that they all need to be. editable or customizable or things like that, or schema driven even.
Mhm.
But well, maybe schema driven, but like they don't have to use all the bells and whistles. But yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I had heard that there was like some previous work on it, but I didn't know that it was anywhere near like as in depth as like a full working group, and you guys had identified like all the different kind of working pieces. So that'd be super, super helpful.
Yeah, I dropped a link for the design system, which was kind of like the final output, but there's a lot of like interesting context in terms of the discussions and the research and like all the dashboards even that we had across the product, which may even be out of date at this point, more than likely are out of date. But we know that for sure because we just built a new usage quota thing, and we didn't add that to it. So yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. But hopefully that context helped a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Cool.
If
Well, thanks for
there's
bringing that up.
if there's an issue that I can follow along on some of that discussion, that'll be super interesting, just to see where it's going.
Same, actually.
Yeah, there was a new one created as well, and I'll send that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I dropped the link to the working group, which also includes a link to the Epic, which has a lot of the items we carried out, which includes gathering the locations of all of the dashboards we're using currently, or well, at the time, which was quite literally a year ago. So, yeah. Cool. I will go a little out of order since we're in the show and tell kind of area, but I just wanted to announce that we have filled our open backend backfill. So we have a new backend engineer joining us on January 2nd.
Nice.
So very excited
Yay.
to have the team complete again. So yeah, and then I'll keep it brief, but I just wanted to say thanks to everybody that was here and watching the recording for a great 2023. If you look back a year ago, you can go into the agenda and see we were still working on our internal preview. We were still calling things the widget designer. If you want, there was actually a demo of the first prototype that Tim had built for the what we call now the visualization designer. So it's kind of fun if you want to see how far we've come there. Where we hadn't even released yet the internal preview, which was just to kind of show what we could do beyond just a very rough proof of concept. And yeah, this year, you know, we've done a lot. We've gone through experiment, we've gone through beta. We have basically just the billing flow just to go and some infrastructure handoff things, and we were ready to start, you know, going to GA and charging money for this. So it'll be exciting. Really interested to
Nice.
see. Obviously, it's not just about the money, but I'm really interested to see what people really want to get out of this and how we can adjust to that. And obviously, we're working on some pretty exciting stuff with how we can leverage Duo and things like that. So, you know, there's many things still that we want to work on in the product analytics vein, as I mentioned, with the proof of concepts around data enrichment and starting to really expand on the dashboard framework and such. But yeah, looking forward to seeing what we're going to be able to do in the next year. But thanks again, everybody. All right. Well, that's all I got. I guess as far as OKR updates, we won't discuss it, but yeah, I think, yeah, I'll drop some notes in there if anyone wants to check it out. But cool. Anything anyone else wants to talk about? All right. Well,
Great.
have a good rest of your Tuesday, rest of your week. And if you're, for most people, I guess we'll see you next year in 2024. So yeah, take it easy.
Hey.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, you as
Have a
well.
good years.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.